I can guarantee your Fortnite settings are wrong. Even if you think you've optimized them, there are some things that you haven't done and you could get more FPS out of or generally become a better player because of it. I'm not going to waste any time. Subscribe, like if this helps, whatever. Getting straight into this. As you can see, I'm on DirectX 11. There is a reason for this. I'm sure you guys have already heard by now that your DirectX 11 settings directly affect your performance mode setting. So this is very, very important. And yes, performance mode is the most optimal, but we need to cater first to DirectX 11 and then switch over to that. So make sure you're over on DX11. Again, this is a must-have. You have to do this or you will not get the best performance. Window to mode, full screen, lowest latency. Your resolution, 1920 by 1080 ideally, but if you're really struggling for FPS, and I mean really, really struggling, you can go down to 1600 by 900 first of all. If you're still struggling, 1720 or 1280 by 1720. VSync, you probably don't need this. Turn this off. Frame rate limit, have this set to unlimited for the lowest latency when you're in creative mode, but when you're playing anything else, so anything else at all, even honestly creative matchmaking, so anything other than like free building creative, have this set to your refresh rate. That's the best option. Just have it set to your refresh rate. I'm on 240 hertz. I'm going to use 240. Brightness, all of this here, all of these graphic settings, none of these matter or affect your FPS other than motion blur. Definitely have that off. That's a must have. Turn that off. This right here, in my opinion, is the best colorblind mode for competitive advantage. So I'm just putting you on there. And finally, the most important thing here are all the graphics quality settings. Anti-aliasing and super resolution, have that off. 3D resolution, have this set to 75, or you can even go down to 70 if you're really struggling. But if you're on a higher end medium PC, honestly, 99 works best. Don't go to 100. Trust me, 99, that 1% actually makes a massive difference. Dynamic 3D resolution, all of these off. View distance, high-end PCs, medium PCs, have it on medium. Anyone who is on a low-end PC, have this on near, and everything else have on low. Show FPS, it won't be much of a difference, but again, we're trying to squeeze those, little changes like 1 FPS. It all compounds. The next minute, you have an extra 25 FPS. Turn this off. It's something extra that is visual. It's on screen. It's an asset that your game has to render, and it fluctuates a lot, so it's constantly rendering it. Also, there's placebo to this. When you don't see your FPS, you don't really worry about it as much, honestly, and you will actually play better. So a little hidden gem, turn this off. GPU crash debugging off, latency markers off, NVIDIA reflex low latency, have this set to on plus boost, and report performance stats, have this disabled. And once you've done that, switch over to performance mode, and then we're going to go over some other things that no one ever speaks about. All right, now once we're in performance mode, just double check that everything is basically set to low. Again, I use view distance on medium, but for most of you, have this on near. Now moving on to audio right here, or audio settings. None of these matter really for performance. I will say sounds, they do have a little bit of a, effect. Again, it's something that your game has to process. So things like music, I always have off. The volumes aren't going to matter. It's just whether you have them off or on. Or sorry, 0% or like any other percentage basically. Dialogue, I always have off. And all these cinematics, picture in picture, you don't need them. I have these on 0%. Sound quality, for the best performance, have this on low. But if you are a competitive player and you don't worry about performance too much, have this on high for the best competitive advantage. 3D headphones, definitely have this off unless you 100% for some reason need this. I don't think you would ever need this. Background audio off. Visualize sound effects, turn this off for the best performance, but again, competitive advantage and you're not struggling for FPS, have this on. Moving on, communication, something that honestly always goes under the radar for most people is, getting rid of voice chat if you don't need it. This can cause, this is another thing your game's kind of, working and processing, so you can turn this off if you don't care about voice chat. But honestly, the main one is just voice chat notifications. Get rid of that. You probably do want to communicate with your teammates. I think maybe just have it on push to talk. Text chat, this is one that, again, I guess it kind of is useful in some cases. So it's either like one or the other. If you're using voice chat, you don't need text chat. And if you're using text chat, you don't need voice chat, basically. Moving on to game, I recommend having your matchmaking region set to your actual region. Having it set to auto could connect you to the wrong sub-server, which in turn will give you higher ping. Scrolling down, not much of these really matter other than the disabled pre-edit option. A lot of pros, this is a little secret that they've been kind of gatekeeping, but having this set to off, right, it can get a little bit annoying because you may accidentally edit, builds and then, try and place them and your wall's got a door in it or whatever pre-edited. But having this off is said to improve latency. So definitely give that a try. I noticed an instant difference and my edits were so much more smoother and responsive. We're going down, contextual tips, get this turned off. Going down even further, NVIDIA highlights 100%, turn that off. I'm pretty sure I'm the only one to actually mention this on YouTube so far. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but minimum field of view and maximum field of view, what this does is when you're sprinting, right, your game goes out. You get more field of view. But this means that there's more that your game then sees, and then more that your graphics card then has to process and render. So having this on the lowest option doesn't really affect you too much competitively. I guess you could argue that, but for the most part, you guys, again, that are struggling for FPS, it's better for you. Your game doesn't have to render as much when you run, and that could, you know, mean less FPS drops when you start sprinting. And then replays, of course, have these all turned off. Energy saving, all of these off as well. I honestly think in regards to replays, you get more, you know, competitive advantage through having higher frames, which could, you know, win you, you know, the box fight, build fight, whatever you're engaging in, then, you know, VOD reviewing. I think there's also definitely better softwares you can use outside of Fortnite, which are more optimized and do not drop your FPS as much. Moving on now to game UI. These are the best competitively, but if you want to get optimal performance, make this as low as possible. So change this to the scale right here, damage number scale, to 50%. Change this to off. Lower your HUD scale as much as you can. This is a sweet spot for me. I don't really want to go any lower than this, but I feel like a lot of people think this is quite big actually. And as many of these that you can turn off. I think for the most part, these are the most optimized. I think if you turn off too much here, it's going to become a problem. And now mouse and keyboard. This is mainly personal, but if you want to copy my sensitivity and stuff, I'm using 3200 DPI, I think. These are best, and I use 3200 DPI because it gives me lower latency. Oh, also keyboard movement, custom diagonals, very important. Having this off could actually give you better performance. I think Peerbot actually has this completely off, and that's saying something. Now, keybinds, these, in my opinion, are the most optimal for any player, especially if you're starting out with Fortnite. But this is also very, very optional. But I'm just going to scroll through right here so you can pause the video if you want to copy my keybinds. Although I don't highly recommend copying people's keybinds because, you know, we're all different. This could be generally a good starting point. But I do want to note that I have 2 binds on the side of my mouse. So this is, you know, very important. It kind of dictates these whole settings. I think the main thing is I highly recommend you have scroll roll down to edit, or building reset, building edit and building reset. Make sure that on both of these. I think that's the only way it works actually. And I heard binding a secondary key on your select building edit, one that you don't use, so you're never going to press, actually helps with latency. I think it's one of those little nuanced things that pros kind of theorize, or theorize. I think that's the word. It's conspiracy theory, basically, is what I'm saying. But this works in tandem with the disable pre-edit option being turned off. And going over to account and privacy, player surveys, just generally turn them off. And I think that is pretty much everything. You know, any notifications you can turn off as well that may pop up during game, turn them off. Definitely get rid of them.